You're told by banks, this is a safe place for your money. We'll look after it. Look, we've got these big buildings and we do all these complicated things that you won't understand. Give it to us. Give your money to Wall Street and to investors, they'll look after it far better than you will.
A lot of people that may previously have been on the sidelines of the freedom game, can we say?
And we've got to understand our enemy, haven't we, to beat them. If you don't understand the way it all works, this system, then you'll never beat it.
James and Adam, how are you, gentlemen?
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
thanks,
very
Chris.
good.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, doing good, thank you.
We because there's three of us, we don't know when to talk, do we? So, yes, interesting one, this. So James approached me as a fellow veteran a few weeks ago, mate, didn't you? And one thing that is a reoccurring theme at the moment, you see a lot of podcasters are sponsored by, I'm just going to call it, buy gold companies. It's not an area that I know anything about, hence why I thought let's do a show about it. But it's clearly people saying, buy precious metal, buy precious metal. I literally know nothing about it. My question would always be, in the zombie apocalypse, is having a load of metal under your bed gonna help? That's probably my ignorance. But what was also interesting, James, is you told me a bit about your story. So, like I say, fellow veteran.
Yeah.
And you seem to be coming from a good place. If I use the term wake up, I think maybe the last 3 years has been quite an awakener for a lot of people that may previously have been on the sidelines of the freedom game, can we say? James, we'll start with you. Tell us a bit about your veteran background and how did you get into precious metals? But also, I should just add, you mentioned a couple of things when we chatted that I thought people would just find fascinating. For example, we discussed, or you told me, how it's possible to pay your mortgage off in a much shorter time if you know what you're doing, and I clearly don't, because what you told me was, that was a bit of an eye opener. So yeah. like I say, mate, over to you. Who did you serve with? What was it like leaving the forces?
Okay, 22 years in all signals.
Bad luck.
I know. I was a gym queen for half of it. So I was in the gym for half of it. I loved that bit, but the rest of it, no. But no, it was good. It was good. But joined in 91 and left in 2013. So I've been out 10 years now. About halfway, would I say halfway? Maybe about halfway through my 22 years, I just started educating myself outside of work, because at that time I wasn't enjoying where I was in the army, and I just thought, I'm just tied in here. I've got a job, but I'm scared to get out, and I'm tied into this pension. I've got to stay in. I've got no options. So I just thought that's not good. So I just started looking at other things and to better myself personally, invest in myself. So I just started getting educated and going away and doing courses outside of work, ones that I was paying a lot of money for. To learn about finance and how it all works and how to be in a better place, how to be financially secure and not be dependent on a pension. While I was serving, like I say, and just over the years, I started buying houses. I used to do door work as well as doing the army. A lot of forces do that, don't they? in the spare time. They do door work. So I used to get beaten up on the weekend, the nightclubs. And that money I got, extra money, I then put it into property. And that's when I started, hold on a minute, I can actually make a passive income here, make some sort of income outside of the army, which is a pension, which no one's telling me what to do with, what I can and can't do with. So just then 2008 hit. I got myself, as a lot of people did, I nearly went under. I didn't go under, but I nearly did. When 2008 hit, the last recession, so I buried my head in the sand, backside up, head down for a couple of years. But I eventually got myself back up again and carried on the investment journey, and got myself out of the mess and just turned it round and got myself to a point, Chris, whereas when I left the army, or before I left the army, I didn't have to panic looking for a job. I wasn't a millionaire or anything silly, but I was in a position where I had enough money coming in where I didn't have to worry about money, worry about a job and everything else. But the last few years in the army, I was teaching the guys that used to work for me. I used to be an MT sergeant in York, actually, before I left. And I used to teach all the guys, and they knew how to get time off because they'd ask me about it. So I could sit down and get the whiteboard out and be teaching them about money and everything else. I started paying people debts off for them. I'd make a little bit of money, not much. But I'd say, you're not getting this for free, but I'd pay off the debts for them. A bit risky for me, but that's what I did. But then I realised, long story cut short, I realised it doesn't work. Giving people money doesn't work. Because I'd find out from the grapevine a few weeks or months later, they're back in debt again. So it just didn't work, They'd always pay me off, but then they'd go back into debt again. So that's when we realised, or I realised at the time, that you've got to educate people, you've got to empower them to think for themselves, and just so they understand how money works and how the whole banking system works. And once we started doing that it changed things. It started changing people. People are doing things for themselves all of a sudden. And it's just empowering people to do things for themselves and not be reliant on the system. And that's where it all started, really. It started through just a necessity to have something outside of the army that I wasn't, so I wasn't just reliant on that pension. So I had options in life. So I had other paths I could take. I wasn't just tied into that. There's so many guys that were miserable. They were miserable as hell. In the sergeant's mess, they'd be really miserable. But they had to stay for the pension. All they thought about was the pension. And I just thought, that's not fair. It's not fair that we just tied into that. And then nobody really understood it anyway, Chris. It changed twice while I was in, and then it was changing a third time as I was leaving. And it's less money in our pockets. It's every time it changed, it doesn't better us, does it? The guys getting out, the veterans or whatever, it doesn't better us at all. So you've got to do something for yourself. And I realised very early on that you've just got to step out of what everyone else does. You've got to do something different. This is just from my experience personally. What helped me was I just did the opposite to what everyone else was doing. Not a lot of the guys. Some of the guys in the mess were taking the pee at me a lot because I was always away doing courses, and they'd be in the bar every night, And I said, well, guys, you just got to do what you got to do. And it did work out in the end. It was a lot of effort, but it worked out in the end. And on this journey, I met Adam. I met a family do, because we're related. Met him at a family do, and we just got on really well. And we had the same passions in life to help people. We just enjoy helping people. And do you know, one of these things, Chris, I always think this, I still think it now, is if you've got something valuable, and you can make a difference, you've made a difference in your own life, why are you not passing it on? There's so many people out there, don't pass it on. They'll keep it to themselves. And I just always loved it, even as a kid. Just if I found something good, I want to tell everybody. And I just thought, when I got out of the army, I used to joke saying I want to be a dog whisperer because I love dogs, I love animals. But I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was into property and all this. I did quite well through that, property investment and what have you. But I didn't really want to do that for a living. I started doing that, but then I found my way here. So I loved helping people, I loved helping the lads get out of debt and be in a better place and what have you. I even used to find houses for people, for soldiers, and get them on the property ladder and things like that,
So, James, I just want to ask you.
Yeah.
So, a lot of this buying precious metal stuff, you can see it's quite inextricably linked now to people that, let's just say, want to get out the matrix. They realize the system of control. We've got these central bank digital currencies now being a reality. I got refused entry to a place the other night because I wouldn't put their app on my phone. And this is a major British pub chain.
He this all the time, don't he?
That was a huge red flag.
Red flag.
Did you get to a point in your military where you started to think, hang on a sec, like, even though, you know, the lad's intentions and the lass's intentions are good, maybe this military's not being used for freedom freedom and democracy, and maybe we're actually a big part of the problem?
Well, that's why I had to leave in the end, even though I was at my 22-year point anyway. You know, I was near my end point anyway, but I couldn't have stayed on. I just couldn't, because my eyes were opened many years ago. Just as time went on, they just opened even further, and I just started thinking, this is just what I believe. I'm not trying to push this on anyone else, of course, but I believe we're just cannon fodder. I just honestly felt that in the forces, we just used to make old men wealthy, or young men die to make old men wealthy and have more control. I just didn't. I used to always think as a young lad we were the good guys going in to stop this and stop that and help them and help these. Well, then as time went on, I just started thinking that's not the case. Tell me if I'm wrong, anyone, but that's what I felt anyway. I just didn't think we just lied to. I just felt we're lied to, and we're still being lied to. It's not what we think it is it? So, and it's sad. It's really sad.
I'm going to get me people mixed up with Wilfred Owen, was it? I always think Wilfred Brimble or Bramble, but I think he was a guy in Steptoe and Son. It was the First World War soldier. He was also a poet, and he wrote a very famous poem in Latin.
Yeah.
And it was called Dulce est decorum est. And then it went on about like Partry and and it basically, in translated, it meant, once again, the same old lie. It's an honor to die for one's country. And it's just you don't have to apologize, mate. He was saying it in the First World War, which is what, 100 years ago, over 100 years ago now.
Yeah.
I think they just rely, don't they, on youngsters that want to make something of their life that don't really understand how the world works, and it wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't for the fact we're seeing horrendous statistics of how many people die, for example, in the last 20 years in the Middle East, and how many veterans. It's like, James, I'm not exaggerating. I don't think I know any veterans that aren't just absolutely broken and damaged.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that everybody, but the ones that come across my desk, you know, in my daily, it's this whole like killing people stuff. I don't think it's good for our heads, mate. You know, No, I'm not saying that everyone, you know, goes and takes someone out, but we all go through that indoctrination, don't we? That
definitely.
You think it's fine to go and take other life.
Yeah.
And when I look back now, I think, oh my God, these people are evil, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the military. I'm talking about the controllers.
Yeah.
You know, they don't care about you. They laugh. I think they laugh at us, James. I think, you know, we wear dog tags. I think they think we're dogs.
Yeah.
And I think it takes brave people like you to say the truth, you know, to speak the truth, because who else is going to stand up for the next generation of kids that are going to get, once again, the same old lie? It's an honor to die for your... Crazy. So, Adam, let's come over to you. So you're linked by family.
Yeah, so James is my wife's cousin. So we met at, like James said, a family do. And, I was new to the family. So, you meant to kind of not work the room, but you meant to, chat to different people. And me and James very selfishly just kind of sat in a corner. And we just, like James said, had that passion for helping people, and it just came across. So, yeah, I think my now wife was like at the time, why we just sat in a corner talking to one person. But that's just how things work, I guess. I think as well, when you meet someone that you really have a connection with, I'd rather go really deep with one person than have a surface conversation with the whole room. That's just my preference. And that's what happened with me and James. So I know, look, the military and all that kind of stuff that you guys have been talking about it's people's lives, and it's obviously a huge thing. It's a huge responsibility. It's a huge weight that you carry while you're serving, and even when you come out. But I really see a lot of parallels between the system that you're indoctrinated in, and you're told to rely on and lied about. There's a lot of similarities with how people outside of the military are indoctrinated with loads of other areas of life. And finance is one of those that we're indoctrinated into. We're told finance is complicated. Give you money to Wall Street and to investors, they'll look after it far better than you will. And they're the ones that these behemoth companies getting rich and making all this money and giving us literally the crumbs on the table. So there are some parallels, and I think being controlled through what you're taught. I think being controlled through what you're not taught is something that we don't talk about often enough. There's so many things that we've found out for ourselves that you're not taught in school that we've learned and make the world of difference.
Yeah, it's called eating vegetables.
Yeah, exactly.
Eat vegetables, folks. Never get sick. They don't teach you that one in school, do they? It's just in
exactly.
So I'm being a bit frivolous here, but it's so true.
You're right.
Everything you've ever been taught or not been taught is a lie. It just is.
But it's difficult. It's a difficult kind of, when that's all you've known, to then, as soon as you start to hear something that opposes that or is different to that, you can almost feel within yourself, I know I did initially, a bit of friction, because it goes against all this stuff that you've been told for years, and told by seeming authority figures. You're told by banks, this is a safe place for your money. We'll look after it. Look, we've got these big buildings and we do all these complicated things that you won't understand. Give it to us. And it's just not the case. It really isn't. We found that for ourselves. And I think what we do, Chris, is we don't just say, hey, this is a nice idea, why don't you give it a go? Is we talk about things that we do for ourselves. Like, we're customers first and foremost. Unfortunately, the metal you see behind me is not real. I wish. But we buy metals for ourselves. So we talk about what we do and our experience, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, what to look out for, how it can benefit you, how to manage your expectations. It's not buy gold today, be a millionaire next week. So although that's the very sexy message that's put out there online, that you can buy a bit of gold or a silver coin and then, don't worry about your finances ever again, it's not the reality. But there are some really powerful things that you can do. And I think it's all about positioning yourself for a better financial future. That's what it is. And being independent of the system. And then you've got choices, you've got options. Mm-hmm. And we just want to give people that education so that they have the choice if they want to.
So, fellas, should I do a quick synopsis then of the banking system for people at home who might be blissfully unaware of how corrupt well, what a scam it is, basically, and always really has been. So, and feel free to come in afterwards and chip in the bits that I've got wrong, or I've left out. So you've got banks. Essentially, they're just a corporate name. They literally have no money in them, although legally they're supposed to have 10% of what they lend out. So, folks, when you get your mortgage, a bank loan, you're not going to nice Mr. Barclays or whatever who goes, right, have we got that money in our safe to lend? We got some gold in here, Stan. Hit him up with 120 grand house, 200. No, all they do, folks, is they type into a computer keyboard what you want to borrow, right, which doesn't exist. And then you, for the rest of your working life, pay them back money that they never even had in the first place. Only 10%. It's called fractional reserve lending. Okay. So you're borrowing money from private people who probably hate and despise you, because that's the nature of what keeping you enslaved your whole life. And they don't even have that money. They're laughing at you. Right. And then at the same time, you've got the central banking system, who are an unofficial, unelected body of private businessmen that I think was it in America, they got government to sign off the central bank by holding a private meeting on Jekyll Island. They all traveled to, and all these big banking families traveled to under false names. That's how secret this deal was done. They did it on a day when all kinds of havoc was going on in American politics or American war. I can't remember the actual event. And they secretly got the government to sign off. Yeah, the central bankers will now control all our national finance. And that system was replicated in every country worldwide, bar, surprise, surprise, was it Iraq? Cough, cough. Was it Venezuela? Cough, cough. Iran, cough, cough, and there's a couple of others that surprisingly all become the big bad guys on the planet. And what these guys do is they control the money supply, which is just bits of paper. Again, not backed by gold. It used to be, I promised to pay the bearer £1, and that was redeemable in gold. You could take it to the bank, say, look, I want a quid's worth of gold, please. And I don't know if they ever had to give it to you, but that's what it represented. But of course, the psychos stole all the bank out of Fort Knox, out of the Bank of England. They've got it all, right? There's nothing. I think there's literally nothing in there. There might be like a sovereign ring or something sat on the shelf, right? And what they do instead is they just write bits of paper and they put like a 1 and a 0 on, and you think it's a 10. No, it's a bit of paper. And again, and what they have the ability to do is control how many bits of these paper are in circulation, as well as the interest rate on all the loans and the stuff that you get. So when they decide they want to crash the economy, which they've done very well numerous times now, they stop printing so much paper, put the interest rate up, people start to default on their loans and stuff because there isn't the money in the system anymore. And what happens? They lose the business that they've spent 30 years with their family building up. They lose the house that they struggled and worked for 45 years to put a roof over them and their kids' heads. And where does all this sucking up? It gets hoovered up, doesn't it, by the corporations? Hence why you see Weatherspoons in the high street. You see all these fast food chain restaurants, but all the nice little, interesting little cultural places, they all got crashed in the old, don't want to say the word, but the last 3 years, for example, all part of the big, clever plan that these greedy people who all went to the same schools, they're all controlled by the same greedy, historic, European aristocratic banking families. And now they've even got it nailed down so good that if you go in the bank and you want to withdraw your money, they won't let you have it. Right? You got to argue at the counter for an hour explaining why you want to take 10 grand out of your money. I did the same. I was on the phone 40 minutes the other day to the fraud department because I wanted to pay a charity 3.5, 4 grand or something, right? Wouldn't let me. Right. So anyway, just wanted to do that quick synopsis so people can see why there's no faith in the system and why things like gold seemingly you could understand why people think it's a good, did I get that about right, fellas?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, brilliant.
Well, I'm brilliant or
No, yeah, of course you are. But no, that was spot on, mate. No, yeah, it was spot on. It's, do you know the way I always put it, Chris? Because Adam and myself always, because we're simple beings, and we always try and keep things simple for our followers or anybody out there we speak to, and just keep it really simple. And the way I used to always explain it is, the banks lend us fresh air. They're literally fresh air. They charge interest on that fresh air, and when you don't pay any of that fresh air back, then they'll then take what's of real value from you, your businesses, your homes. It's an asset collection service. It's a very clever system for them, for the people who set it up. It's been deliberately set up this way. And we've got to understand our enemy, haven't we, to beat them. If you don't understand the way it all works, this system, then you'll never beat it. You'll never, ever beat it. You'll never get your head above water. And that's why we're here. We have a passion for this and getting this out there, because when we used to do physical events, because we'd much rather be physical, as you would, in front of people, we used to do seminars up and down the UK and even abroad sometimes. And you could see the penny drop. You could see in people's eyes. They'd be like, wow, why wasn't I taught that? Why wasn't I told this at school? Why wasn't... Yeah, you can see it happen, couldn't you? The light bulb moments. And that's what pushed us on to keep doing what we do, because we just love it. When people get it and they think, wow. And just precious metals, we didn't start off doing precious metals. We started off financial planning, putting financial plans again for people, for families. We'd even try and get the kids involved if we could and teach them about how it works, the basics of it. Because when you get it, you get it. And you can put yourself in a far better financial position and just be financially secure. Not about being millionaire. It's never been about being millionaires. It's about being debt-free and financially secure. So you don't have to worry about money. You don't have to worry about feeding your family. So it's not fair that people have to worry about that. So I'm getting carried away now, but
no,
that's why we're here.
It's I think we're all on the same hymn sheet now. So let's get into this, fellas. I think we should keep this podcast shorter rather than longer, simply because we want more people to have time to watch it.
Yeah.
So if I hit you up with the first thing, what is the rule of 72? And how do you get it working for you and not the banks?
So the rule of 72, and I think we can tell you about all this stuff now. If you don't mind, Chris, we would love to actually show you this stuff. Maybe we go a little bit deeper into it on another show, and we can actually show you, because it's best. I think it hits home probably a little bit better as a visual, but we'll definitely tell you. Like, we don't want to hold anything back. So the rule of 72 is something that's actually quite simple, and what it does is it tells you how long in time money will double at a given interest rate. Okay, so let's say you've got £10,000 and you've got it in a savings account and you're getting 1% interest. Okay, so 10 grand in account, 1% interest. The rule of 72 says if you take 72 and you divide it by the interest rate, that'll tell you how many years that money will double. So obviously £10,000, 72 divided by 1, 72. So that money is going to take 72 years to double from 10 to 20. Okay, so that's all it does. It's a very simple tool, but I think the power in it is the application. So when people were putting money in their bank account and getting 1%, they probably didn't realize that it was going to double to 20,000 in 72 years. Well, add 72 years to the age you are now. Does that make you feel excited? Like, what does it do? What does it do for you? It's not a very compelling story, is it? So obviously, as the interest rate increases, so let's say it's now at 3%. So you do 72 divided by 3. And what this does is it shortens the period for your money to double. What you can also use it for is it calculates debt, how long you will be in debt at a given interest rate. So you can use it both ways. It's either working for you, as in you are getting interest and your money is growing, whether that be really slow or maybe a little bit quicker. But it will also tell you how long you will be in debt, because it's just maths and you apply it whichever way you want. So let's say, for example, you had £10,000 and of debt. So you'd borrowed this debt. Now the average credit card is around 19-20%, something like that. But let's be kind to the banks and say that it was 12%. So 72 divided by 12 is 6. So if you had £10,000 of credit card debt and all you were paying was the minimum payment, every 6 years, the amount you would pay would double. So the amount that you would have actually paid on that debt would double over time. So let's say, and again, this is a lot easier to see, a lot easier to understand when you can see it, because you can see it actually mounting up over time. But essentially, you can either get the rule of 72 working for you to accelerate you out of debt and to increase your assets, or it works against you. And that's what we help people to do. First, to understand what it is, how it works, and then to apply it to actually increase the rate that their debts go down. Because all of your debts, I mean, a mortgage is just like a big credit card. So you've got a big credit card on your mortgage, maybe other credit cards and things like that. And they're designed to keep you in debt as long as possible. That's why they have these minimum payments. They don't mind you paying the minimum payment because it extends this term. It has the rule of 72 working in their favor, not yours. Don't forget, a liability for you on your personal balance sheet is an asset on someone else's balance sheet. So the longer they can extend that, the worse it is for you and the better it is for them. So we flip that round and we say, well, let's see if we can accelerate you out of that debt as quick as possible, which makes it better for you, worse for them. They've got loads of money. Don't feel bad for them. They're doing all right. And then we say, okay, now you've freed up some money. Let's see how we can get your asset line actually accelerating with the rule of 72 as well. I know I've not given you any kind of specifics there, but I guess we'd love to show you that stuff to really make it hit home.
Wow. And I'm just wondering now, fellas, I mean, I'm really interested in the question, why gold? But do you think we need to take debt acceleration first? How to pay your mortgage quicker? Which, I think most people will be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, we can do a whole section on why gold, and you can look into it as deep as you want. I think the mortgage thing is it's everyone's biggest debt, isn't it? The biggest thing that people are working towards, their biggest expense usually. So do you want us to tell you now how you can do it?
Yes, let's take the mortgage thing. Just one thing on the credit cards is, gosh, I remember when I used to live on my credit card, it was just what you did. You offset all your excess outgoings at the end. I mean, you just put it on a credit card, and I never forget the negative energy that was attached to it. It was a negative energy. And I can say that for the simple reason, when I decided never to use one again, only use one now if I want to get like the insurance you get when you pay on your card. So you pay for your holiday, and if it got cancelled, you got a bit of a protection there. But just the simple freedom of being able to at least put one finger outside the matrix and say, look, they haven't got me on that one, right? It's just bloody freedom. But yes, how to pay your mortgage quicker and save thousands of pounds.
This leads in nicely to, this is how it all led into metals for us, Chris, just so people understand this. And this is why we still have to look at this now, because when people come to us, they want metals. We have to make sure it's right for them, because we've got a duty of care over people to look after them. Some people that come to us, we chat to them, ask them questions. We find out that they've got lots of credit card debt or lots of high interest debt, and we'll say to them, it might not be the best time to buy metals right now. You might be better off paying off your debt first, paying down the interest on that credit card on this and this and this, and then come back to this later. It doesn't make sense to put your money into precious metals right now. But dealing with the debt side of things makes sense. You should be dealing with the foundations of the house first before you start moving on to building the house, if that makes sense. So it does make sense to talk about this stuff first. It really does. It's made the biggest difference, hasn't it, Adam? When people get this, they get it. I used to work with a lot of Nepalese, the Gurkhas, British Army Gurkhas. Lots of friends, lots of Gurkha friends. I told one of them guys, well, two of them, sorry, two of them guys. Adam's laughing because then the bank must have hated us, because thousands of them the next day were down in town doing this. What Adam's going to talk about now, doing this. So it works. We know it works. We've helped thousands of people to do it. So yeah, if that makes sense. Anyway, go for it, Adam.
Okay, so look, the whole thing with this, just to really zoom out, is you want to accelerate your debt line down as steep as possible, which then frees up money so that you can then have your asset line as steep as possible. So you're decreasing debt, freeing up cash, and then increasing your asset line. So that's the whole point of it. And you can do that by saving money and saving time. So those are the two things that you're looking to save. What you're not told is that when you have a mortgage, in fact, Chris, let me ask you, I don't know whether you've got a mortgage or not, but if you don't have one, you can talk for people that that do have one. You have mortgage payments. What's the frequency of those mortgage payments? When do you pay your mortgage off?
Well, they're usually monthly, aren't they, for 25 years?
Monthly, exactly. Is it an option monthly, or is that just what they tell you? Or do you even have an option?
You just assume that's what people pay, innit, monthly. And you,
absolutely.
You don't know any different.
Absolutely, yeah. And, you could say, well, if you get paid monthly, then it kind of works out, monthly bills. So here's what you're not taught is mortgage debt. The interest is calculated daily. Okay, and that's really, really important. So what happens is, let's say you've got £100,000, yeah, on a mortgage. It'd be quite a small mortgage, but let's say you do £100,000. At the end of day one, the interest is calculated on 100,000. Okay. On day two, at the end of day two, the interest is then calculated on not 100,000, but 100,000 plus interest from day one. Day three, interest is calculated on not 100,000, but 100,000 plus interest from day two and interest from day one. So when you pay at the end of the month, there's been this snowball effect where the interest has kept accumulating, and it's interest on interest. Does that make sense, first of all?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I guess the point you're getting at is a month's worth of interest accruing over 30 or 31 days on, say, $100,000 mortgage, or maybe a $500,000 mortgage, which is not abnormal these days, is it? For your that's for your first house, right? It's like, if you wait that whole month, they're hitting you with interest every day on that. Whereas if you nail a little bit each day, it might not seem a lot, but over the course of that 25 year, you're not going to get to 25 years because you're going to pay it, the sort of compounded effect of this is you're going to shorten your mortgage. The fascinating thing is how much you can shorten it by, which am I right in saying you can sort of shorten it down to a third?
It depends. I think first of all, you've absolutely nailed it. So just to double back for people that maybe we lost people along the way. So the mortgage, the interest compounds, and it's only a small amount, but it's a small amount on a big number. So even a small percentage on a big number over 25 years, like you said, becomes a big amount. The aim is to stop that or to limit that snowball effect as much as you can. So for example, let's say just for the ease of numbers, let's say your mortgage is £800 a month. Okay, and let's say it's a typical 4-week month, just to keep things very simple. Rather than paying £800 at the end of the month once, if you paid £200 every week, you're paying the same, as in the same amounts leaving your pocket, but you are limiting that snowball effect. You're stopping it kind of getting too big. And what this does is it brings, again, the whole point is accelerating your debt line down as quick as possible. And you're just paying it off quicker. Now, if you do it weekly or fortnightly, every 2 weeks, there's going to be extra payments within the year. For example, there's 12 months in the year, but there's 26 fortnights. So there's kind of 2 extra, if you're doing it every 2 weeks, 2 extra payments that you would make over the year. And again, that only adds to the acceleration out of this debt. So you're totally right. You're accelerating out of it and it compounds, and you stop that compound effect. Now, the amount that it can save in money and time depends on a few different metrics. The balance of what you've got left, the interest rate. You know, we always used to say, look, the higher the interest rate, the higher the amount, the more we can actually help. Because, you know, if you're only paying, let's take it to the extreme, 1% on your mortgage, then there's not a lot of interest there to be saved. Whereas if you're paying 6%, which will be a lot of people now as interest rates have gone up, 5-6%, then there's more to save. There's more that you would have been paying that you now can accelerate out of. The other interesting thing is that when you pay less interest, when you save the interest, James always says money saved is money made. Okay, so that's money in your pocket, not in their pocket. What that does is it means that you shorten the time. So when you look at the whole picture of accelerating out your debts, freeing up cash, and then building your assets, is let's say you can pay your mortgage off 5 years earlier, and it was £800 a month, just to take that as an example. You've now not only saved probably tens of thousands of pounds in interest over that period, but you've now got 5 years at £800 a month of money that you would have been paying that you now don't have to pay. Now, what most people like to do in this kind of microwave society where everything's now, we don't want to wait for anything, is to take that £800 a month and say, let's go on holiday, let's buy some more things, nice things that you know, shiny things that you see on the internet and whatever. If you can be disciplined to take that £800 a month for 5 years, which will be a lot of money, and then put that into assets, you now start to accelerate your asset line. By the way, this, let's say, 25-year period that you paid your mortgage off in 20 years rather than 25, and you freed up this cash, that's not cost you more. You've just been smart with the order that you pay things. And if you took someone that just pays their mortgage monthly for 25 years, at the end of that 25 years, they've just paid off their mortgage, no assets, no free cash, nothing like that. And you take someone that does the acceleration, they've paid it off in 20 years, got 5 years worth of cash, put it into assets. Those assets can now grow. If you put those two people side by side, they're in a vastly, vastly different position after the same 25-year period. And this is what it's all about. You don't get taught this stuff. But small changes make a big difference. And what you don't know in the financial world, unfortunately, this is a bit of tough love, does hurt you. It does, and we've seen it. And again, we can lay all this out. We can show you some numbers and show you exactly how much you'll save and how it all works. But that's the top and bottom of it.
My gosh, it's yeah, I don't think people will ever have heard it put like that before. But it's kind of it's information you just can't ignore unless you literally don't care about your finances. I mean, it's it's an eye opener. Let's say that. Let's come on to the next thing then. The devastating effect of inflation and how to beat it.
Yeah. I think this is probably a bit easier for people to see. I mean, look, you nailed it, Chris, when you talked about central banks, and those are the guys to watch. Those are the ones that are really running the show. Like James said, we're very simple. We're chimps with clothes on, so we like to keep it very, very simple for ourselves, because when it's simple, you can take action. Central banks have two levers. One is interest rates, and one is printing money. And they either increase one or increase the other or decrease. And moving one of the levers can counteract the effect of the other one. So in 2021, about January, I think it was, we did a video called the tidal wave, because we saw that governments were printing, central banks were printing all of this money, and more money than the country had ever seen. And this was happening all over the Western world, all over the world, really. Countries were printing money. And we said, this is going to have an inflationary effect. It can't not. You can't flood the system with that much extra money and prices not go up. It's like saying, Chris, if we all became, let's say everyone in the UK became a millionaire, every single person became a millionaire, do you think a coffee at Starbucks would still be £3? It can't happen. How can it happen? We're all millionaires. Everyone knows that. The prices are going to go up. And that's essentially what happened. They flooded the system. Unfortunately, it didn't get into the hands of the right people or in the quantities that we think it should have. But it meant that prices had to go up. They had to. There was all this extra money and no extra goods and services. In fact, the goods and services contracted over the last 3 years. So inflation is like a secret tax. And what it does is it degrades the value of your paper money. That's what it does. Paper money is designed to lose value. It's not designed to keep its value. We can show you all of this stuff. We can show you over the years how it's lost so much value. And then they just replace it. And then they lose value of the next thing that comes along. So with inflation, if you have paper money in a bank account and you are saving paper money in a bank account, you're losing. That's it. I mean, James, can we put it any more simply than that?
Not really. Do you know, one of the things we always say, Chris, is you can't print gold. There we go. You can't print gold. You can't just create it out of thin air. And you can with paper currency, can't you? You can just, and that's exactly what they did do. You can't print gold. Yeah. So if you just swap your paper currency for gold, saving gold instead, then over time you're going to be better off. And that's not us telling you that. You can do your own research and find this out for yourself. You know? It's
like, let's just say you put 10 grand in a savings account on your online banking, right? They're only going to give you like 0.75% or so. It's ridiculous. I mean, in the old day, it used to be about 3 or 4%, or if you've got an ISA, it was a bit more. But I guess the point you're making is if you put your 10 grand in an account and it's only making like 1% interest a year, and even I'm sure that's like they work it so it's not even the 1%, is it? You know, you're going to get to a stage in the future where everything's gone up so much in price and value. Your paper money in a bank, it's not that it's gone down at all. It's just you can't go out and buy a potato with it anymore because the potatoes are so expensive. It's
exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly it.
It's good for transacting with, Chris. Currency is great for transacting with, but not great for saving. If you're saving in currency, you're losing.
There was a gentleman, you know, that fought against this. He threw these bankers out of his country. And he went down as the most hated man in history. But let's not go on. We'll save that for another day, folks. That's a little bit over most people's heads, even my own to a certain degree. But yes, we've got it. That's now you can start to see why investing in gold. I'm not, folks. Can I just say these gentlemen didn't ask to come on the show and sell anything. I'm not trying to convince you. You won't see a link below to buy gold. Not maybe not yet. Anyway, I'd have to do a lot more sort of research on this, but even I can start to see, rather than have paper in a bank that's going down, you know, is dead. It's like it's rotting away almost. You could have a precious metal that is always going to stay like at the market value. Am I about right? And it's a physical thing.
Yeah. So the easiest way to think about it with paper money is the two I's: inflation and interest. If inflation is above the interest rate you're getting, I mean, you might have been able to get 4 or 5% interest in a bank now, but if inflation's at 10%, then your paper money is losing. That's it. You know, if you're earning £2,000 a month, but you're spending £3,000 a month, you're losing. Even if that goes to you're earning £10,000 a month, but you're spending £12,000 a month, you're still losing. And that's how the game's set up. Nobody became financially secure or financially independent of the system by saving money in a bank account. You know, it just doesn't happen. But we're all told that, you know, that's what we should do, and that's a very safe thing, and you know, all these other things that we're told. So yeah, you've got one thing that is only going to go down in value, paper money. That's what it's designed to do. They can print more of it, they can manipulate it, and they do all the time. Or you can have something physical that there's only a limited supply on the earth. It's a physical thing, and that over time goes up in value compared to this paper money. You've got to look at both halves of the picture. The first half is what you're giving up, and that's paper money, and that's going down. And the other half is the gold, that even if the gold was just maintaining, as a whole picture, you're winning. You're giving up something that's only going to go down for something that maintains. Great, that's a win. Be happy with that. In reality, what happens is you give up the paper money that goes down, and you get the gold that goes up over time. So you've got to look at both parts of the performance, and you don't usually think of the performance of paper money, but you should, we think, and look at the performance of the gold. And it puts people in a better position in the future. As James referenced before, it's about having the right tool for the job. So paper money is great for day-to-day transactions, but a terrible long-term store of value. And we encourage everyone, do your own research and find, look up this stuff. Gold, not so good for day-to-day transactions. You can't walk into the supermarket and buy things with a bar of gold or a silver coin or whatever. But it's a great long-term store of value. So pick the right tool for the job and position yourself and your family for a better place in the future.
Gold is also very tangible too, though, Chris. You can sell it instantly. It's recognised globally, isn't it, as money, wherever you go.
If you brought a bar of gold into my supermarket, I'd say, fellas, help yourself, take anything that you want.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm just going to push back here a bit, fellas. I'm not causing an argument. It is what it is. There's a couple of things on my mind listening to this. First off is, like, I really had to fight hard in my life to win the spiritual battle. And it's called a battle, folks, because it goes on every day. You don't, you get to a point of what I call enlightenment, and you never will slip back from that, although you might be tempted to dip back into the 3D matrix when if you're mucking around with substances or you getting upset with people. the negative energy starts coming back in your life, and then you go, oh, hang on, spiritual, well, let's stop doing that stuff. Boom, boom, boom. Big part of spiritual is living in the now. It's the living in the now, and it's not like, it's appreciating, hang on a sec, have I got a roof over my head? Yes, answers yes, I'm fine. That is it. There's nothing else to worry about. Death or changing this set of molecules is inevitable. That's fine. You can't go anywhere. You just go back to the universe, and your energy gets used somewhere else to create other beautiful life. It's been a big old thing. And I, as a content provider, especially on channel platforms like the one we're probably talking on now, you have to fight really hard not to get obsessed with subscribers and how much money are they not paying us this week, right? Because when I chat with my team, bless them, I'll say, fellas, let's enjoy the journey. Let's not forget. Let's enjoy. We're chatting to some great people. We've achieved a bloody beautiful goal here. We get to talk to people. I never thought I'd be talking, some of my heroes. Sometimes my knowledge goes above theirs, and it's a bit of an anticlimax, but it's a good old thing. And I think, hang on, I've got a beautiful family. Don't want for anything, Would I like a Porsche? Yeah, because I like fast cars, but I wouldn't want it for the same reasons I would have wanted it 25 years ago, which would have been to impress the girls. And I'm not trying to say anything here, fellas. I'm not trying to get to a place. I'm just saying that it is a bit like accruing stuff all the time. I wonder how that affects your spirituality. Does it? And I've got another one for you in a second. But what do we think of that? Because you guys are obviously humanists. The fact that you were paying off your mate's bloody debts, James. It's normally the other way around in the forces. You're normally trying to nick a tenner off someone. So, I mean, you must have run this through your minds. Do you think, is wealth? I guess it depends if we're talking about wealth and security. But if I was a yogi sat here in me orange pajamas, that's more like Guantanamo Bay, isn't it? No,
orange pajamas.
me saffron coloured bloody, what's them skirts that blokes wear? David Beckham had one, didn't he? What are they called? But you know what I mean. I'm sat here. I've got me man skirt on. It's saffron, and I got a turban on my head, and I've done my yoga for the morning, and I've eaten my sprout for the month. I'd be saying, oh, no, do not, you're not thinking about tomorrow. This is very, very wrong. Hey, I can do this job. But do we have any thoughts on that? You don't have to explain yourselves. Let's be honest, most people live in the 3D matrix. This is their currency, or even the fourth dimensional people that are awake to all the nonsense, they still use the matrix as their frame of reference. Do we think it could be a blocker there to spirituality, is what I'm saying?
For me, it actually helps all of that spiritual side. And here's the reason why is, look, we live on a financial planet, and it's very difficult to go any length of time without needing money. And, people can say, your money doesn't make you happy and things like that. And I think if you're trying to get money to make you happy, or wealth or whatever, then, there's a lot of miserable billionaires, and that's not, we don't call that success. It's about having the spiritual stuff to make you happy, and then using money as a tool for day-to-day stuff. Now, this is just me speaking. If you are playing the game that is set up in other people's favor, in the bank's favor, and not in your favor, then you're always reliant on their rules for the game. But if you can become independent of that system, then all of a sudden you've got time, brain space to do all the spiritual stuff and all the other things that you want to explore, because you're independent and you've taken responsibility for yourself, and you write the rules of the game. Not completely, because we're still, we're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out a little bit some of the time, but you've taken responsibility and made yourself independent. So like in James's scenario, relying on that pension, you're in the military and you're doing something maybe you don't want to do, but it's their rules. If you want that pension at the end of the day, you've got to do what they want you to do. Otherwise, you don't get. And I think that's very spiritually kind of dampening. Whereas if you can take yourself out of that system, you now don't have to follow their rules. And it's way more freeing. Since we've been buying metals, which has been many years now, I feel I walk with far more confidence than I did before, because I'm not reliant on anybody. I'm not playing by anyone's rules.
Yes. I've got a couple of things there. So first of all, Jesus or Yeshua, did he not say, give unto Caesar what Caesar's, and then do your own spiritual thing? So it's kind of what you're saying, Adam, is we do have to get along in this. You might be outside the matrix, but you still got to put food on the family's table, haven't you?
Sure.
The other thing I was going to say is just, all these veterans that have done all this for their pension. I don't think they realize they're all going to lose that pension if they go against the system in the future. This is what the digital world is about, folks. So at the moment, you might have said, I don't know, you might have said no to a certain medical procedure because you didn't think it was, you didn't think it was right for you and your family. In future, they're just going to they're going to look on their digital console, computer, and go, oh, look, Sapper so-and-so, who did 33 years for his country, was in 17 conflict zones, paid with his is in his mate's blood. He's not gone down to the clinic this week like he's supposed to. So there's your pension gone, mate. Right. And people don't think this is happening. This is happening now. Lots of people during the last 3 years, when many veterans just went, to hell with my pension, I'm doing what's right for the kids, and this ain't right. It's just not right. This ain't about what they're saying it's for. It's something evil beyond belief. I knew veterans, they just said, to hell with my pension. But I also knew a lot that went, can't risk my pension. I'm not criticizing, bloody hell. If your house depends on it, but I think this is why, friends at home, we need to be having this discussion, because there's still probably a lot of people out there don't understand the New World Order and what it's about. And these
sorry, Chris, just to interrupt you there on that point that you're making, exactly there. You've got people that are in conflict with what they probably want to do, but if they do what they want to do, then they're going to be penalised. Or you've got people that, or you've got an option where you can actually do what you want to do and you're independent of the system. That for me puts money, finance, wealth, whatever you want to call it, and spirituality hand in hand, because one directly affects the other. And I don't want to over spiritualize what we do, because what we do is very, very physical, very real, very tangible, and you can see it with numbers. It's very kind of black and white. You can't deny over the past few years that those two things have been very, very, very linked, and probably even before that if we look into it. So we don't see the two as competing.
They're not mutually exclusive, is what we're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Here's another one for you fellas, and again, this is not a criticism whatever. I just find it fun. This is a conversations I've had over the last few years, and that is, bloody hell, it would be gold, wouldn't it? And precious metal, meaning it's like the worst commodity out there because it's just symbolic of greed. It's symbolic of the destruction of those cultures in South America and Central America when the conquistadors went down there and didn't give a damn about the esoteric knowledge and the, all this wealth of information about the ancients and history and these incredible buildings and stuff they've got down there, which we still can't explain to this day how these things were created, and all the questions inherent therein, like is society a cycle? Do we come and go every 5,000 years? Has there been loads of or is it just this? What? So fascinating stuff. But of course, the conquistadors, led by the rulers of the controllers of the day, who are still the controllers, still the royal family, isn't it? A part of this control mechanism. Old Charlie there, the old fanboy for the World Economic Forum, he's having a laugh, and he's just having. I don't think he understands how hated he is, because he only gets to see the public that they let forward to lick his boots, and all the people that know what he's really about. Anyway, that's just going off on one, but it's a wee bit of a shame. It is just that greedy commodity. It couldn't just be something like it was in the old days. The system of exchange was seashells, wasn't it, or cockle shells?
Oh, it's been lots of different things, hasn't it?
Literally a valueless item. Or it was grains of dried rice or something. Just the thing was the ability to exchange with your fellow human being. If you didn't have a chicken for sale, or you couldn't paint their fence or whatever. And I just think, because they talk about Nisara and Gisara, don't they? This system where all debt's going to be wiped away. They're going to bring back the gold standard to back the money, and to be honest, it's a subject people are fascinated with. I think because it ties into a lot of the 17 stuff, shall I say? I'm not going to say that letter, but here's the thing: it's still a precious metal that we're taking out the rock, and I'm personally against mining. I think the real new world order will be when we understand we got to stop pillaging the planet, and we need sustainable energy, but it's got to actually be sustainable. Wind turbines ain't sustainable. The money it costs and the extraction from the earth of its precious resources to build them, then they slice down the wildlife that's flying around, pollute, the blot on the landscape, then they need maintenance. They cost probably £1 million each to run every, and you can say the same, electric cars. What we got, 5-year-olds down there in sub-Saharan Africa working in a mine to dig up this, what's the stuff, the lithium, isn't it?
Cobalt, isn't it?
All that kind of stuff. I think, ironically, there's big deposits of it somewhere around Ukraine, but don't quote me on that. Or is it? Let me see. Anyway, take that another day. But it's a couple of things going on there, isn't it? One is the greed fact, because when you think about gold, I mean, who doesn't want a load of gold in their basement? Right? That's one thing, is that it does trigger greed, which is why we're in this problem. Part of the reason we're in this problem is when it was a simple system of exchange. And there's a great book on this, folks, if you want to understand how the money system was hijacked, the Babylonian woe. It talks about the ancients when the greedy few decided they could corrupt this simple system of exchange, start writing ledgers and lending out these cockle shells, but demanding that you pay them back. And then that went to precious metal. Then they convinced the leaders, like the kings and the religious leaders, your job ain't to look after the people, you numb nuts. Your job is to get as much gold in your cellar as you can acquire. We're going to help you do it. That's why they set up office in castles and in churches. I mean, the Vatican, biggest holder of gold on the planet, is it not still to this day? Very, very cunning and conniving these money merchants are. They call it money magic, don't they? You know, Babylonian money magic is what essentially we're talking. And I just wanted to raise the point, folks, that it just is a bit of a greedy commodity still, isn't it? And I'm not trying to say anything here, but this is what open conversation is, isn't it? Is that,
exactly.
you know, we can't take this back now, and it's out there for people to have a ponder on. You got kids down there in probably one of my ex-Marine buddies, he got a job in a mine I think he was in Angola. These are not nice places, are they? Let's be honest.
No.
You know, South Africa, look at the landscape. I remember I was in South Africa in, I think, the year 2000, round about the millennium time. And you got these huge slag heaps. Like, they're about quarter of a kilometre up in the air. I mean, they're enormous, where they've taken all that out of the ground in Joburg, and it's all done at the expense of what essentially is slave labour, because they're going to pay him like $1 a week or something, and the guys in the townships have got no choice but to do it. The same big club with the own East India Company and all the mining companies, and well, they own everything, don't they? So don't need to really talk about that. Do you have any thoughts on that, fellas? And I know it's probably a bit outside your ballpark, but
it's in the human psyche. I mean, I'm just talking for myself here. As a child, all the films I watched as a child, the Sinbad and everything I've ever watched, it's always the pirates. It's always gold, isn't it? The treasure's always gold and silver. And when we used to do our seminars, Chris, physical seminars, we used to ask people, would you rather have the currency or the gold? About £50 worth of currency or £50 worth of gold? And nobody ever said the currency, ever. They all just automatically pointed to the metal, the gold. It's in there still. But then we used to always ask, well, why do you save in paper currency in a bank then? And then they used to be like, that's all we know. Well, you know better now, so please go in, do something about it, take it with you and do something about it. But it's in our psyche, I think. It's very attractive, Adam, isn't it? I mean, we've held it in our hand and just thought, wow, it's just... Yeah. And we just... I feel, this is just what I feel personally. I feel like I'm putting the power back in my hands. I feel empowered by owning it. It might sound strange. I just feel empowered by I just feel safer and more secure by having some. I just know that it's the worst place to have it isn't currency in a bank. That's the worst place.
Yeah, of course.
That's my food from the kid. I know that's gonna look after us. I'm saying that it's 10 years. I've been purchasing precious metals for 10 years now, and it's made a massive difference to my family's life. It's never been about greed or anything. No.
Do you guys buy Bitcoin and that kind of stuff as well?
A little bit. A little bit, but I'd much rather have physical.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing is, if you've got the physical, it can't disappear overnight when the internet crashes. Yeah, I think everyone gets that.
But it's just the same with the digital.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry, just on one point that you said about, just so it's really clear, the way that we buy metals is we only buy metals from LBMA certified refineries, and that's the London Bullion Market Association. These are the people that benchmark and regulate the precious metals market. To be an LBMA certified refinery, the LBMA look at the whole supply chain, from the mining to the look of the metals, to the quantities, and everything has to be above board. So it can't be from a mine that has, child workers or anyone that's being exploited or anything like that. And so that's one thing that we're really passionate about, that the whole thing is done in a positive way, as positive as it can be. And the LBMA is the only route that we go to ensure that is all the boxes being ticked. And if refineries fall short of any of that, they'll be kicked off the LBMA membership list, and nobody wants to deal with them. It's a real badge of honor that everyone wants to keep once they've got it.
Just quickly summarize, so people at home, because you think about buying gold and silver, you literally think you're going to get like a gold ingot, or maybe they've snipped the corner off and they posted it to you by FedEx or something, right? And I don't think it's like that, is it? It's kind of held in trust for you. Is that not right?
I guess you've got a couple of different options, and we'll tell you what we do and then why we do it. But there's no one right way of doing it. So the way that we do it is we buy part of a larger bar, and it's actually held in a vault. And these vaults are, put it this way, a lot safer than the double lock on your door. So everything's insured, and they're outside of the banking system as well. So they're independent of that system. We can get our metals delivered at any time we want. We can have them in our hand. We own them legally. So they're not sat on any company's balance sheet. They're not sat on any storage vault's balance sheet. They're owned by us. They're just held somewhere more secure than your home, because at a certain point, you don't want that kind of, well, I guess everyone's tolerance is different, but at certain levels of value, you start to feel a bit more insecure having that in your home, and your family's more vulnerable than if it's held elsewhere. We like to have a little bit close by, should we need it, physical metal, but it's a small amount. Now, other people, they say, look, I want it all in my hand, and that's just how I want to do it. Fine, no problem. Remember, it's physical metal that you own. So you do whatever you want with it. If you want to put it under your pillow, if you want to bury it somewhere, we've heard all this stuff over the years.
So just to clarify again for our friends at home. So friends at home, if you want to trade this stuff, it's not like you got to get it sent in the post and put it on eBay or something. It's all it's all done online. You don't ever have to see the stuff. You don't have to negotiate who's going to chop up the bar to get your bit because it's in the middle. Yes. Okay. Final thing, then, fellas. And this is just to sort of add a bit of balance to what we've been saying. It's the first thing I did when I knew you was going to come on the show. Is I just typed into a search engine something like buying gold and silver, and about the third result, I thought I might actually have typed into YouTube. About the third video that come up was some guy, and I didn't watch it, by the way, but and he's saying the big gold and silver swindle. And I guess had I watched it, he would have put forward a very, because this is the nature of YouTube videos, isn't it? They're all very believing. You got to be a bit. There's probably why I didn't watch it, because it's, I'm always a big believer in keep positive, think spiritual, create your own reality, don't buy into the fear. That's the big. But during all the nonsense, when you went in the supermarket and the shelves were empty, and then they start mucking around with the fuel, and you think, hang on, can the truckers do their job anymore? You could see a potential there for society. I mean, let's be honest, most people, if you don't let them have breakfast, they shit their pants and they start getting really nasty, because it's their God-given right to shove food in the face 3 times a day. Wouldn't take long for that scenario for people to be looking over their neighbour's fence, then I wonder what they got in their fridge. And so I'm just trying to say it is, history has shown this kind of scenario. So my point is, would the gold be any good then? I mean, it'd be better than paper. I mean, of course it would. Yeah. It'd be better than paper, but
we get asked this question a lot, and it depends how far along the apocalyptic scale you want to go, really. But let's take it to the extreme. In those scenarios, you need basics for life, sustaining life, food, water, and probably a weapon. If we're really going, down that route, which I really hope we never do, and it never gets that far. But that's our thoughts on that, really. I don't think we're ever going to say that gold and silver are the be all and end all, and it's right for everybody. Absolutely not. It's just a better alternative than saving paper money in a bank. And it's something that's easy for most people to do. Like when James was helping people with property, about 5% of the people could actually buy a property, had a deposit, or had a good enough credit score to get a mortgage, and all this kind of stuff. Whereas we found with precious metal, we can just help more people. So again, I go back to what I said before: it's having the right tool for the job. If you're in a physical war, then you need a physical weapon. If you're looking at how you can better your finances and you're saving cash in a bank, metals do that job better. It's just, and that's all it is.
Yeah, got it. So one final thing, fellas, just to go back to my original point then, what are the kind of arguments again? What sort of stuff do you come up against? What do people throw back at you in your lectures? Can you give us some examples? And
Yeah, we get all sorts.
I think we've had all the questions, Adam, haven't we? I think. I think we've had a few unique ones from yourself today, but yeah.
Yeah.
I guess things like some people, and I guess this is just preference within metals. Some people say if you don't hold it, then you don't own it. So they say, look, if it's not in your hand, then it's not really yours. There's many different ways of buying metals and storing metals, and a lot of people think that they own metals, but they're actually sat on the company's balance sheet. So if anything happens to that company, their metals go with the company.
Yeah.
But there's also ways where the metals aren't on the company's balance sheet, and that's how we do it. So it's finer detail, I guess, with the devil's in the detail with all this stuff. Some people say, well, gold just doesn't perform very well. And you can look at the performance, you can't really make up the performance because it's out there, it's online. People might say, well, you can make way more with cryptocurrency. True, we're not saying gold makes you the most money, but it's very, very unlikely gold's going to go to zero. Whereas we've seen cryptocurrencies, some of them go to zero or lose, half the value overnight. So
really volatile, aren't they?
Yeah, again, we're not saying gold is the be all and end all. It's just about having the right tool for the job. Something that and again, this is something we go into a little bit more. Some people say, well, yeah, gold, it's not that interesting, and it doesn't perform that well. Something that we do, which definitely needs explaining far more than just this one sentence that I'm going to say, is we actually switch between gold and silver. And by doing that, we actually accumulate more gold for free. That's going to sound totally over the top, totally unbelievable, but we do it for ourselves, and we've helped loads of people do it for themselves as well, where you can actually generate more gold by just switching between two metals. Again, stuff you're not taught, you don't even think it's possible, but it is. So I think it's just what you know, and the more you look into something, the more you can see what it's really like. We've looked into this and we do it for ourselves. Again, it's not theory, it's practice for us, and we want to help people if it's something they want to do. It's not for everybody, though.
Yes, no. It's assets in general, Chris. I think assets in general. Sorry, I was told this many years ago, 30 years ago. It must have been a very wealthy guy. Just said this one thing to me. I got chatting to him, and he said, "Don't save in currency, save in assets." And he reeled off a few. He said, "Property, land, gold, silver, jewels, whatever." He said, "Just do not save in currency." I never got it back then. I never really listened to him, but now I get it. Have real physical assets, something tangible, something That's the way we do it. And precious metals are one of the easiest things anybody can do. You don't need thousands of pounds. That's one thing that people do say to us, "Oh, I haven't got much. I can only afford £50 a month or £25 a month or whatever." Yes, they can still get started. You don't have to be a millionaire, gazillionaire to buy precious metals.
Yes, there you have it, folks. So if you've got £50 spare a month, send it to me. I will make sure I will invest it very cleverly. No, fellas, listen, we could talk. I've really found this fascinating. It's also nice that you're clearly nice guys.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, and
thanks.
we can have an open conversation about the pros and the cons. You're not here just brainwashed. You're not trying to. Well, I mean, I'm just saying how I see it. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and to friends at home, we'll put, so your company, I mean, we didn't mention it, but goldbusters.co.uk. It's, folks, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just a podcast host. This is just a chat. As you know, I'll push back a bit on everything, won't I? Because, you know, nothing in life is that simple. However, if you wanted to engage these gentlemen in a conversation, the link will be below, but that's completely your choice. Yeah, that's it. That's it, fellas. Have you got anything to close with? And then I'm going to say our goodbyes.
I guess just one thing. That would be, look, we're not financial advisors. We don't give advice, and we never want to give advice. If people do want to contact us, then we just give you information, education. We tell you about our journey. We show you what we've done and do for ourselves now. You know, we still buy metals every 2 weeks. And then if that's something you want to do the way we do it, then we'll guide you through that process. If you don't, absolutely no problem. This is not, as you can see, we're not salesmen. We just tell you our experience, and if it can help you, great. So just, I think a lot of people rule themselves out as well. Like James says, I'm not a millionaire or whatever. Or just, if it's something you're interested in, we'll send you the information. And if you never want to speak to us again, absolutely no problem. Get the information and just explore it. If it's for you, great. If it's not, no problem. But we'd love to chat with you if you want to.
Brilliant. James and Adam, stay on the line so I can see if I can borrow a tenner off you.
Yeah, no problems.
But for the purposes of the tape, massive thank you, gentlemen. To our friends at home, really hope you got something out of that, folks. It's just, I mean, it's not an area, as you can probably tell, that I know a lot about. So if you could like and subscribe, friends, as always, that really helps the channel. And look after yourselves. Much love.